Mix It with Mike plugin of the week comes from Pulsar. It is the 1178. The 1178 is a hardware compressor. Yes, it's like an 1176 in stereo. That's exactly the way it is, although it has a slightly different design. The FET electronics are basically the same, although it does not have all the Class A components of the 1176. No transformers. So it has a little bit of a cleaner sound, not quite as warm, especially as the Blackface 1176. But I love this thing. I love this thing, and I love this plugin version of it. I've always wanted to see an emulation of it, and I guess most people have just, the people who even know about the 1178, because there's not a lot of them out there. There happened to be one at Electric Lady Studios where I did a lot of work, and I just had that thing in the room like all the time. You know, it was just amazing because it's almost impossible to get two 1176s to line up with their release times and get them to kind of act in stereo link together. It's just not possible. And the damn thing sounded great, so it was worth it. So Pulsar did an emulation here, which is very cool, of this hardware piece, and it has all the standard kind of things that you would see, but a whole ton of extra features. So we have the normal toolbar stuff up here, but here we have a variety of different displays. So you can see just the normal hardware portion of the unit. Then you could see there's a sidechain EQ section that you can see here, and then you see a graph here, which is going to show you gain reduction. And then we can show both. So we could show either or both. I'm going to display both here just for the purpose of the demonstration, and then we'll kind of take it from there. So if we go over the interface and just kind of start with the lower section here, we have the sort of standard input and output for left and right. You can make it MS, right? So make it mid-side if you want to, versus left and right. You can solo up the left or right channel, and if you're in mid-side, you'll solo the mid or solo the right side. So you have that ability. You can link the controls. So all this means is that when you move one, they both move together. And if you hold the shift key, there's a whole bunch of shortcuts that kind of go along with this. What it'll do is you'll notice it moves the output in opposite direction. So that's with the shift key. There's also some features here where you can right click, and that would allow you to lock a specific parameter. So if you want to make sure a particular parameter doesn't change, you can lock it. I believe that's a standard thing with Pulsar. So you know, make of that what you will. But this actually helps. Because that's always the thing. You know, I know in my work, working on an 1176 or 1178, I have two hands on the compressor, one on the input and the output, adjusting both at the same time to find the sound. And you can't do that with a mouse, you know, so unless you have a work surface or something you can do it with. The attack and release times are just as before. There's three separate modes, though. And in the standard mode, the attack and release. So this is the sidechain feed in. So there's an internal sidechain and then there's an external sidechain. So whichever one you select, you can unlink them. So the left and right will compress independently of each other. So the detector channel will be independent left and right. If you link them, then what happens is the left and the right will sum, and then if you apply any processing, equalization, etc., that will be affected, and then it will give you identical gain reduction on both sides. Okay, and then you can invert it, and what this does is sort of this weird opposite thing where the right side will trigger right side gain reduction, and the right side will trigger left side gain reduction. And that's a little bit odd. I haven't experimented with that, but there might be some creative ideas of working with that, especially if you are in mid-side mode. Okay, so you can work it that way. The attack times are just the same as they are. Remember, on the 1176, the fast attack and release time is the number 7, right? So this is like 20 microseconds down to 800 microseconds, right? So or 80 milliseconds, right? So 80 less than a millisecond, right? So 0.8 milliseconds. I'm sorry. So that's very fast, although it has kind of a softish knee, especially if you're on the 4-to-1. The knee gets harder as you go up in ratio. That's kind of part of the sound. And then the release time, similar kind of thing. The fast release time is 40 milliseconds, I believe, 50 milliseconds. And the slow one is like 1.1 seconds. So you have all of those features, a couple little added in bits here. You have all of the normal ratios that you have, 4-to-1, 8-to-1, 12-to-1, 20-to-1. That's all normal for 1176. And then there's an all buttons mode, which does work on the 1178. So you have that available there as well. Over to the right, to sort of make up for the fact that it doesn't have that sort of warming transformer type of thing. And it's not that it sounds cold, but if you're expecting that sort of a little bit more body that you might get from a Blackface 1176, like the low noise version, then that it's less so here. You're not going to feel that as much here. So what they added is a little saturation component. You could leave it off. You work just as you normally do, or you could add tape, triode, warm or clip saturation, and then there's a calibration pot, and this calibration pot will determine how much of that you're adding in. So I'll put a little bit, show you a little bit of that just so you can kind of see what the different sounds are. And it's pretty cool. It's a nice addition to this that helps add some character to it. Power on-off switch, as you would expect, is like a bypass, wet-dry control on the output, so all of that is normal. So all of those controls are fairly normal. What you get here, though, is very cool. There's a lot of things here that help to expand on the capabilities of it. One is you can monitor the sidechain. No big deal there, right? You want to do that. You could set it to internal or external source, and you have a separate gain control when you adjust an external source. And this is really cool because sometimes you set an external trigger and you want to compare it versus an internal trigger, and you could just toggle back and forth between it, but often the input gain ends up being off. This allows you to compensate for that so you get the same amount of gain reduction and you see which one is more responsive, internal or external. Cool. Then there's a look ahead feature. And so because of the fast time of it, you can make it even faster, right? So you could actually pull with the look ahead on, you could pull it 20 milliseconds earlier to look ahead to actually literally start compressing ahead of time. So that's way, way ahead of time. Or you could have a look behind by as much as 10 milliseconds. So what that does is it decreases the attack time by like 10 milliseconds or up to 10 milliseconds. So that's kind of an interesting feature as well. And sometimes I think there was a version of the 1178, which is an anniversary edition. There was a special one that had a switch that allowed you to get like 10 milliseconds on the attack. But that was not like a normal part of the 1176, so that was an add-on. So you could turn that on or off, and that is what it is, and you can monitor it. The sidechain EQ is pretty cool. You can see as I move around here, I could just click and drag and add a band, and I can change the curve, right, to basic filter types, high pass, low pass, shelving EQs. And so this will just EQ the detector circuit for how it responds. You can focus in on the part that you want. You can go in and type in settings. You can drag it around if you want, and then you could eliminate it. If you're on the upper end over here, you got a shelving EQ, right? So I can create a shelving EQ. If you're on the lower end, you have a high pass filter, right? So you could do it that way. If you're on the lower end up here, you have a high pass filter for the top end. So it has some similar kind of things that you find with plugins like the Fab Filter, the Pro Q3, right? Where you have this thing where you depending upon where you are will determine whether you get a bell or a shelving EQ or whatever. So that's just some cool functional stuff that makes using the sidechain EQ a little bit easier. And this is incredibly effective. It's very cool. Here you have a gain reduction window here. And this essentially can display left, right, left and right. And then you could display them. So the left and right actually shows you gain reduction for left and right independent of each other. And M is mono. And so basically you can see gain reduction and all the different variations of that. And if you switch to mid-side, it'll show mid-side instead of left-right. That's the basic idea there. Over here, you'll see gain reduction as well. So this is like a scrolling time display with gain reduction. I find these things helpful. If you don't like it, close it. Pretty much that simple. But you also have the input level, output level, and then you show gain reduction for the left and right up here, so you can see that down as much as like 40 dB. And that's pretty straightforward, right? That's pretty much it. That's the whole thing. A couple little features up here. You could set the oversampling, connect to the user manuals and the website, and there's little help balloons. So if you're not sure about different features, you can turn that on. And as you scroll around, a little pop-up window will explain what the feature is. So that might help you get you through the normal stuff. And you have a social media feed, which of course you need to get to, right? So when you put it on your bass and you get the best bass sound ever you can post it directly to Twitter. All right, so let's see. So let's start with just a couple of quick things here, just with some drums, just to kind of give you an idea of what it sounds like here. So let's see. Here we go. Now this is a mix of drums and bass in the stem here. So if I wanted to work the sidechain EQ here, I could roll off some of that just to kind of let the drums drive it. Right, you can see how much less gain reduction there is. Maybe I'm pulling it a little bit too much to get some of the kick in there. Just to kind of give it like a little bit of glue there, get the whole thing to kind of pump and breathe, and by getting the bass out of the way there, that'll kind of help to make that breathe along with the drums. And then, there's also the all buttons mode, so this will give you a little bit more of the excessive kind of more dramatic gain reduction kind of thing. It probably doesn't work so well with the bass. Hold on, let me just take this out for a second. Let me push into this a little bit since we're here, and then kind of do a little bit of gaining here on this. So you can see how there's a range of different things that you can kind of get into. Right? So anyway, just to kind of give you a little bit of a flavor of kind of what you can do just in general with it on, working with, in this case, just working with drums. But just to show you, I'm going to bypass this for a second. Let's just kind of go over and do a little bit of stuff here with just something like the bass part. All right, so let me back this off here because this is, there we go. So here, maybe I want to make this breathe a little bit, kind of pump and breathe a little bit. So maybe I want to take away a little bit of the clickiness here. So I'll put the latency on here. Let's push it back like maybe 5 milliseconds or so. allow a little bit more of that attack to cut through. And then here with the sidechain EQ, maybe what I can do is just kind of get this to react a little bit more. Let me just see here. I'm going to need another EQ here. Make it a little bit more responsive, make it breathe a little bit more. Right, and so if I get that to breathe, let's just see, just with the drums as they are. Right. And then, of course, you could go in and lop on some saturation on top of that too, which would probably have, pretty, cool little flavor to it here. We could just do a quick experimentation over here with this. That's a little bit of warmth there. Okay, so give you an idea of just how you can kind of play around with some different sounds. And one other thing I wanted to show, because anything that you use an 1176 on, it can work great with drums, obviously, especially room tracks. Like if you have a big room track type of thing for a rock kind of thing, getting that pumping, breathing sound. It just has a different character sound than what you get from an 1176. Has a slightly, but all of the same controls, and just the design of it has a lot more flexibility built into it, just with some of the added features with the saturation that allows you to make up for some of those things. And the sidechain EQ is just incredible. That really is this, makes this expands the capabilities of it tremendously. The external sidechain obviously is great, but this is just an amazing section. And I love this add-on here as well. Let's just take like on a vocal here or something and do a little bit more of a classic pump and breathe kind of thing. Let me see here. Oh, okay. Yeah. The input and output here, I'm sorry, I was looking at it like the stereo, expecting this to move. Here, what I'm going to do is just kind of have an all buttons mode, kind of a medium slow attack, fast release time, just to kind of get a vocal to kind of breathe a little bit. So it's holding the shift key, you could see it's adjusting this. And this actually works incredibly well to keep the gain balanced. I think they did a great job with that. A lot of these things are not calibrated very well, and they did a great job here. So let's see, how about we unmute? It's the little things, right? Solo everything here.
You know I'll wait, I'm standing in place. You kick it with her, you know I'm for ya. But you can't deny me when you close your eyes. Being alone, this time is on ya. Seeing the sun.
Okay, let's see. Where are we with this? Okay, great.
You know I'll wait, I'm standing in place. You kick it with her, you know I'm for ya. But you can't deny me when you close your eyes. Being alone, this time is on ya. Seeing the sun fading away. Hope you know this ride can only go so far. The way you looking, I didn't notice till then. Who you fooling? 'Cause I don't believe your lies no more when you're talking. I just know you're clowning Who you fooling? 'Cause I don't believe your lies no more. You're trying, you lost me, thinking that you could leave me, lost in all the lies that you tell. The one who you're chasing, she ain't bad like me. Don't believe the lies that you tell.
Right, so that will help to kind of lift it out of the track a little bit. I can warm it up a little bit. Let's see.
You're away and standing in place. You kick it with her, you know I'm for ya, but you can't deny me when you close your eyes. Being alone, this time is on ya. Seeing the sun fading away. Hope you know.
It already feels a little saturated to begin with. I think that's something that I'm doing earlier in the other compressor that I have going, doing something different inside one of the other plugins or inside the channel strip. But just to give you an idea, just that's not doing this. So let's just kind of hear this in context of the mix and just see how it lifts the vocal out.
You know I'll wait, I'm standing in place. You kick it with her, you know I'm for ya, but you can't deny me when you close your eyes. Being alone, this time is on ya. Seeing the sun fading away. Hope you know this ride can only go so far. The way you looking, I didn't notice till then. Who you fooling? 'Cause I don't believe your lies no more when you're talking. I just know you're clowning. Who you fooling? 'Cause I don't believe your lies no more. You're trying, you lost me, thinking that you could leave me, losing all the lies that you tell. The one who you're chasing, she ain't bad like me. Don't believe the lies that you tell.
The oversampling helps a bit there.
You looking, I didn't notice till then. Who you fooling? 'Cause I don't believe your lies no more when you're talking. I just know you're clowning. Who you fooling? 'Cause I don't believe your lies no more. You're trying, you lost me, thinking that you could leave me, losing all the lies that you tell. The one who you're chasing, she ain't bad like me. Don't believe the lies that you tell.
I could also work the sidechain EQ if I want to make it a little bit more responsive here and kind of, have it focus in a little bit more on
You looking, I didn't notice till then. Who you fooling? 'Cause I don't believe your lies no more when you're talking. I just know you're clowning. Who you fooling? 'Cause I don't believe your lies no more. You're trying, you lost me, thinking that you could leave me, losing all the lies that you tell. The one who you're chasing, she ain't bad like me. Don't believe the lies that you tell. You looking, I didn't notice till then. Who you fooling? 'Cause I don't believe your lies no more when you're talking. I just know you're clowning. Who you fooling? 'Cause I don't believe your lies no more.
that way I can kind of focus in a little bit more in the body of the vocal to get it to kind of follow the compression, make it a little bit more smooth. Loads of flexibility. Really love this sidechain EQ section, and it really sounds great. It really reminds me of so much of exactly what that 1178, excuse me, sounded like in studio, because it did have a different texture. It was cleaner sounding, and it has a little bit of grit, but a very different kind of grit than what you get with even the Silverface or Blue Stripe 1176. Really cool one. Pulsar always does amazing stuff. Really love the company, and I really, really love this plugin. From the time I got it, I started diving in and using it, and now it's just like I'm finding I want to use it on everything, and that's can't ask for anything more, and that's why it's the plugin of the week. So there you have it. Pulsar 1178, Mixing with Mike, plugin of the week.